it doesn't matter that security's, behind the scenes, under the covers. I had a manager of mine many years ago say, he said, Becca, I know you worked in consulting, and in consulting, it's kind of all about getting your name out there and putting your name on things. He said, don't worry about that anymore. He said, don't worry about putting your name on it. Just make sure success follows you. And I really took that to heart. And it's taken several years. And every year I feel like I get a little bit better at that concept of I do whatever I can to ensure that success follows me. And so I try and help other people in IT and on the business side succeed. And in doing so, we're actually ended up with a much more secure organization, even if it wasn't, quote unquote, a security project. So I'm gonna tell you a quick story, and it just kind of close this out. And it doesn't really have to do with much anything else, but it's just a fun story to end on. And we all like fun stories, right? Many years ago, I'd say at least 10 years ago by this point, my grandpa was certainly in his early 90s by that point. And he calls my mom one day, and she gets on the phone, and he's very, very upset. And he says, Carol, I think you need to talk to that son of yours, talking about my brother. Now, at this point in the story, when my mom was relaying it to me, I smiled because I really like it when my brother gets in trouble. My brother can be a little bit direct and sometimes inappropriate, and so he can sometimes set people off in the wrong ways. But I love him for it. Anyway, he says, I really think you need to talk to that son of yours. And she goes, well, why? What happened? I said, well, I just got a call from him. And I picked up the phone, and I heard him say, Grandpa. And I was like, Scott? It's like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, Scott. He said, Grandpa, I'm in trouble. I'm in Tennessee. I got pulled over and got arrested, and I need $500 to get out of jail. And my mom was like, that doesn't sound like Scott. Now, probably important in this story is that my brother is an attorney and a judge, kind of successful. Not really likely that if he got pulled over in Tennessee that he, would have been arrested. And even if he got arrested, that he would have needed $500 from my grandpa in the middle of the night to get out of prison. But nevertheless, my grandpa was in his early 90s or so. So he wasn't kind of thinking in that route. And so he kept saying, yeah, so I think you need to talk to Scott and just see what's going on with him, or what is the problem? And mom's like, well, I'll give him a call, but, I really don't think it was him, but I'm curious, what did you tell him? At this point, in the story, my grandpa really believes that's my brother on the other end of the line. He's in Tennessee. He needs $500 to get out of prison. My grandpa said, well, I told him what I'd tell anybody. I said, I don't loan money to grandchildren, and I hung up the phone. And that's a good story. And I wish I could see you all, because a lot of people laugh when they hear that, and that's the truth, right? It really is. Now, I told you at the beginning of that story that it was just a fun story to end on. Didn't mean to have to do anything, but it really did. Because what did we learn there? We learned there are malicious people in the world. They're going to call people we love. They're going to create a sense of urgency. There's probably going to be a financial motivation. And the best thing we can do is just disconnect the call, delete the email, or walk away from it a little bit. But that's a very human story. It's something we can all relate to. It's something where, if I illustrated that as a problem, I think the people that I report to and that I work with at St. Louis University would say, yeah, that's a problem worth going to solve, because we can all relate to that. We don't want our students or our faculty or our staff to get approached by those type of people. So if there's something we can do, let's go and solve that problem. So that's my thing. And this is my grandpa. This was actually taken by a professional photographer in the 70s. My grandpa was featured in an ad for the Ford Motor Company. My grandpa was a big Ford guy, always had a Ford truck of some sort. So there's just a neat little photo of him from the 70s. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. But again, thank you all very much. I really enjoy this, and I know I really can't wait till we can all get back in person together. Live audiences it's much better to be all together live, but this is a good substitute in the meantime. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Becca. If anyone has any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A section down below, or also you can type them in the chat. It looks like we do have one coming through. Someone wants to know, what is a good example of automation, especially regarding storytelling?
One of my favorite examples was really around automating password management, and for those type of folks that needed developers and stuff that were focused on that. The challenge there is they were spending a lot of time doing it. They didn't enjoy doing it, and their upline, their boss, and why storytelling was so important here was completely against this particular product. Didn't understand why we had it, thought it was a complete waste of money, and we should just get rid of it. And I don't like to give up, so I was like, well, I'm gonna go find a use for it. So in talking to his folks and his influencers, because honestly, you didn't care what I said or anybody in security said. So talking to his folks and getting them to understand, well, I can make all this work go away for you. If the next time that we change these passwords, you go change it over here instead and set up this connector, so it'll just do it in the future every time after that. So it wasn't too long until we ended up in a situation where they didn't have to go do that work anymore, and that's kind of how we sold that upline. It wasn't important to him, the executive. It didn't matter what any of us in security said. That wasn't going to matter either. So, but if I could get his own people to tell the story of we're wasting a lot of time and we cannot waste that time by using this product that we already own, then it became a good story for everyone, something everybody can embrace. It wasn't about a secure way to manage passwords. It was about reducing the amount of time that his group had to spend doing that work.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm not seeing any more questions come through, but we'll give it a few more seconds.
Lots of appreciation. We got a lot of people thanking you. Really great presentation, Rebecca. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to do it.
All right. Any more questions from the audience? I think I'm going to call it there. Oh, looks like we got a Q&A just came through. Oh, Rebecca is amazing. That's not a question.
Thank you, Jen.
There you go. Now we got a question. There are, can you see that one?
Yep. So the question is really around how do we choose products when there's like you consider that vendor space slide, when there's so many vendors to choose from, how do you choose a vendor? And this particular question was in the password management space. And this is actually just good advice. So a couple of things that I've started to look at, particularly after I've started my new gig, is number one, where do they fit in the industry? And I look at that, that's probably 1/3 of our decision making. So, or in the upper right hand corner of Gartner, or, what else can they say about their expertise in the industry? And it doesn't matter if they're the leader or about the leader, as long as they've got a good, compelling story to tell. The second thing that I do is I ask for references and this is especially true now having gone into higher ed, references for other education customers. People have deployed it in an education environment because there's unique challenges in that space. So can they demonstrate industry experience with what we do? And then finally, and this has honestly become one of the most important things, and a number of vendors have started customer success programs, and they look differently based on the vendor you're looking at. But the customer success program I'm looking for is where they have a dedicated resource that talks to us every week, every 2 weeks, on some sort of regular cadence where it's our agenda. We get to show up and say, this is part of this tool that we don't understand or we don't have implemented right, help us through that. And they help our people understand it better and get the most value from the product. So, and that's really what it all comes down to, is how confident am I that I can get all of the value, unlock all of the value out of this product in a short amount of time with the people that I have. And so those vendors that are willing to step up and say, when you purchase our tool, we ensure you have the right people, and they're not there as a professional services group. They're not going to be there for a week straight, but they're there on a regular cadence where we can continually to drive more and more value out of the product, understand new features are released, and that really prevents us from having shelfware. I think different products have different claims to fame, or they may say they're the most secure or the better or whatever, and they can make whatever claims that they like. The reality is, if they're successful in the industry, if they have pretty decent press, if they've had pretty decent reviews with either Forrester or Gartner, they're probably going to satisfy our needs. from a technical standpoint. So I'm really looking for those things that aren't, technical check boxes, but more how do they engage with the customer and how do they ensure that we're successful with their product long term.
Yeah, absolutely. They said thank you for answering it. Awesome. I'm not seeing any other questions come in. I think we should be all good to go if you want to go ahead and wrap it up, Sean.
Sure. And then I just wanted to let you know, Rebecca shared her contact. So I'm sure, Rebecca, would you be open if anyone has any further questions? Could they shoot you a text on LinkedIn or something?
Okay. Yeah, well, always feel free to reach out on LinkedIn.
Cool. Yes. And same here. You can find me on LinkedIn too. Maryville, Drew and Brian are also on LinkedIn. But I won't give you permission to talk to them. They have to do that. But I really appreciate everyone coming out and joining us for this really great, informative webinar. And we hope to see you in the next one. We'll be doing another one in 2 weeks on the dark web. So please join us then and look forward to seeing you there.
Right.
Thank you very much for
very much.
a great night.
Thanks.
Thank you, Rebecca.